Hello, this is another, I've been calling this Our Mycelial Selves conversations. Like we are always connected in the roots and underneath, but we are individual, unique beings as well. I'm here with Ahlay. Ahlay Blakely. Yeah, we're up in Shoreline, on lands of the Coast Salish peoples. I believe this is still the Wamish land, yes. I'm up north of Seattle a little bit. Here for another beautiful conversation. As always, starting with a gift. This is Nutty Buddy. This is some of the best. This is a batch that I used like 6 types of nuts. There's cinnamon, there's a touch of honey, and it is divine.
Thank you.
Salt. Yeah.
Cannot wait to try it.
It's fun.
Nutty
Yeah.
Buddy.
I am. Yeah. I love nut butters. We had connected for the first time just a week and a half ago at a beautiful little gathering called Singing Alive, and we'll just kind of flow. We'll try to stick to the 3 questions, but if we move on to other topics or rabbit holes, we'll go for it.
Cool.
So the first question is about your journey. Your journey to live in your truth, in your authenticity, in your own sovereignty and integrity. And from what I experienced a week and a half ago, stepping into a deeper sense of purpose and service and community and all of that in deep alignment with yourself. And so however you'd like to take it, what has that journey looked like?
Call in my spirit kin and ancestors to be with me in this conversation. Knowing that the journey is not just me.
Yeah.
And it's coming through. The journey, I think, starts with the experience in this body of how I like to see it, of like carrying spells that or curses that are hoping to be broken through this body for my lineage and my child and everyone else that I get to be with and around. So I guess I would say my journey started with from very little, 8 years old. Trigger warning for those who are survivors. Surviving 8 years of child sexual abuse, and that going through that alone and not having anyone to talk to about that. And I did have one person I talked to, which was my dog, and Esther Williams was my best friend, and that I would say that's trying to make a long journey short. Like that's where a big part of my journey begins. Yeah. Is that chapter of my life. And then I pretty much ran away from home at 17 and didn't come home again until I was 33. And when I was 25, I had a kid, and I thought when I was 25 that I was an adult. And now I just turned 39, and I just became an adult recently. And so I basically grew up with my kid, who's going to be 14 next month. I would say they're a huge part of my spiritual journey, and being a mother to them, and like getting to see all of like the darkest parts of myself reflected back at me in them.
Yeah.
And like just looking at them and being like, that's my fault. Like it's a big deal. And so it for me it's like the it makes the wheels spin really fast for me on like, wow, thanks for showing me that that's something I need to work on.
Yep.
And maybe if I can transform that, then maybe I'll just naturally see a transformation in you, hopefully, you know. So so I've been working both with like my journey has been a lot of shadow working through witnessing my child, and also in those however many years that I ran away from home, going through another 8 different periods of being sexually assaulted and molested and violated, until I finally broke the spell. And it basically consisted of me turning around and facing the person who was attacking me and like fighting back.
Yeah.
And since then, I have not ran into those experiences, and I ended up on the ground and unconscious, and like neighbors took me in, but I fought back. And I'm not saying that people should fight back or anything. I'm just saying, like, for me, that was like I faced the thing and was like, no, actually no. So so that's been a big piece of it. So bringing that through my ancestral lineage, and like continuing to do a lot of trauma healing, and continuing to like peel back these layer after layer after layer, onion peels of like what's mine, what's ancestral, there's just all these stories. My dad died 6 years ago, and when he died, he was a Christian Republican, like conservative, you know, like would have voted for Trump if he was alive. And when my half brother and sister and I cleaned out his trunk as the last thing we cleaned out after we had gone through his apartment and garage and everything, we found a suitcase in his trunk, and it was full of lingerie that was his size.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was a man at his deathbed that no one knew who he was, and we tried to talk with him and invite him to eat with us. It was just, there was something going on, and you know, there were things that my mother told me about their 17-year marriage, where it was like you could count the number of times they made love, you know. So there's just like, there were things. And so as I like hold like the mosaic of that story, like these tiny little pieces. Who are you? That's like a baby.
Like a hawk, a baby hawk? Wow. There's
I've never heard that sound over here before.
Oh, beautiful. That's a blessing to see, I think.
Yeah, so just there's a lot of I guess the way I look at my journey and my lineage is I am the incarnate. I'm the one living in this body at this time right now. And I look back at the stories of my people and my ancestors, and often they're stories of not living out the soul's longing, like the soul's deepest longing.
Yes.
And so I feel like I'm a commitment to living out my soul's deepest longing. I'm also a commitment to, I'm a commitment to breaking the spells, like these intergenerational spells. Of the harm that was both endured and caused by my ancestors. So that's the path that I'm walking on, and And it's become clear to me as I walk this path that the tools or technologies that I have to do this is song with people and grief work.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a short version.
Thank you. Like, to start, wow, I feel it. Thank you for such courage in your own life. Just hearing the breaking of a pattern and fighting, like that was the healing in relationship that shifted things. And the courage to share this, courage to step into it, the courage to take responsibility that goes beyond you. There's a lot of threads and similarities in ways that I've been doing a lot of ancestral work, specifically with my grandfather. And I'd always viewed him as in front of me fighting my path because of the man I saw him being when I was young, and also the way that my father has been almost, raised to have the same, a product of that same generation, of that same flow of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a leader, what it means to be good, and all those ways. And as I hear that story with the complexity of your father, that I can only imagine having such inner shame as projecting it out into others and living the shift I had was, and similar, was I can view my grandfather as the child he was and assume that in this next whatever, since he's been dead for 20 years now, over that, he has integrated the parts of his being in a way that he can see me doing this work, and I can feel him behind my back now, instead of the phantom in front of like, why'd you quit your job, or why are you taking this path, why you're abuse security through relationship rather than financial means, and him being a first generation American and everything that's flowed from that, I can understand the journey he's been on, he went on, but now we're in this journey, and I often harp on the essence of it wouldn't be put on our shoulders if we weren't capable of it. And maybe those past generations weren't in the right place with the right tools, the right wisdom, and now we are where we can be the elders and the children at the same time, and learn and grow. And everything you just said about your relationship with your daughter just sounds so powerful. So thank you. I'm curious, before we flow into a little bit of the how you've integrated that into you and how you open up to relationship through that journey, what is belonging and community to you?
Belonging and, or belonging in?
Belonging and. Yeah.
Well, probably belonging and, well, let's start with belonging. Belonging to me is the core wound of our collective. It's, I think, one of my deepest griefs, touching into that grief of longing to belong. Has been one of the most powerful tributaries to the ocean of grief that has allowed me to cultivate compassion for people when they're acting in certain ways that make no sense to me. If I can tap into their longing to belong, then I can recenter and stay with them.
Wow, that's powerful.
Because for me personally, because I have touched the center of that grief.
Yes.
And so for me, belonging is I first had to figure out how I belonged to myself, and I had to figure out how I belonged to my ancestors and those who came before me, and what that meant for me, and this is more of a recent journey, is belonging to all my people, which funny word I use, I'm both the witch and the witch burner, the colonizer and the colonized, the raped and the rapist. Like all of that is me.
Yes. And
I belong to all of that.
Yep.
And so I really think that for me, belonging is owning the wholeness of my lineage and myself, belonging to all the parts of myself, because if I am rejecting parts of myself, and if I'm rejecting parts of my lineage, then I'm gonna not be able to see you as whole either.
Yes.
And that's why there's annihilation energy, and that's why there's cancel culture, and that's why there's all these things where we're pushing each other away, because there's so much trauma from not belonging.
Yes.
And we're looking for belonging out here, when it, as any spiritual teacher would tell us, like it starts here, it starts inside. And for me, it's actually started by belonging to my ancestors, like claiming the pain, claiming the trauma, claiming the diaspora, claiming the genocide and the slavery, and like all of the different pieces that make me who I am. And then so that's where I'm at, and now belonging externally, like I'm still figuring that out. I really don't have anything to say about that except it's a journey. It's like I think where I find most belonging is with people who are so on their path that there's not a lot of time for drama. It's just like, oh, you made a mistake, okay, we got this, like let's talk about it, and then we move on. But there's like there's so much shit to do that I don't really have time to like argue with you about this. I mean, I'm not conflict avoidant, but what I'm saying is, like, why are we worrying about such little things all the time when we're literally living in a collapse right now? And so that's where I find the most belonging, is with people who are just really deeply walking their path. And I find belonging on the peripheries of places. Like, I like to be not in the center unless maybe I want to be for a moment, but like my default is periphery. So that's belonging. And then as far as community goes, what I know about myself is, as long as I have a little cave with a door that closes, I can be in community. But I need to have a place to regenerate, and that happens alone for me. So I have to, because of the work that I do in container building and holding space and giving, the gift that's coming through, I really need a place to like go and it's like a lion, like I'm a Leo, and I have to like do so much resting and hibernation, so that it's like this like contraction and expansion. I have to be able to contract. But I love being in community. That like Mom says, like that's the currency.
Thank you. Well, that's what you're preaching to the choir. That's been my biggest journey, like living in community, and then creating the boundaries that I have what I need to recharge alone. And it's not like I'm depressed, it's not like I'm out, it's just like I need space. And being surrounded by extroverted that recharge with other people, it's the cave, the lion analogy. My last name's Lion, and I'm a Leo as well.
Cool.
And so like it's always resonated. There's so much beauty in what you shared in that first part around belonging, that is about integrating our darkness. And it's not about like letting parts of us die or moving beyond. It's about welcoming that, bringing that in to be seen, and then embracing it. And so many people just want to live in the light. They want to live with rainbows and kittens.
Too much light can be blinding.
Absolutely. It was actually what brought together Singing Alive for me, the gathering, was a lot of you and Lawrence and then a few others. I felt too much of trying to stay in the light from the beginning. It was like, right away, people come up to hug me, and I'm like, can you just check in with me first before the hug, or just like real fast, being like, oh, we're here, it's going to be festivities time, it's like release, and all of that. And so, that comfortability with the darkness, it's it. It's so powerful. I will also share, have learned that moving at the speed of trust, even though the times are urgent, does require us to sometimes have those horrible, those tough, nitpicky conversations, so someone feels fully seen in all the nuance. And I struggle with it too. It's like exactly where the tough it is, but so anyway, that was something that came up as I heard you there, because it's been my edge. And I believe Adrienne Marie Brown shared, it's the times are too urgent to move fast. And it's like, how do we do it right? It's like all of this around us, and I don't know. It's like, I want to be meeting people who have, similar exactly what you're saying, have done the inner work to be able to hold on to what they're sharing, like what they're putting out in the world, and be able to move forward in relationship to then be able to do work together. But also recognize that, I don't know.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think that we have to move away from the status quo, and so things need to be interrupted. But I think for me, it's there's like pick and choose the battles sort of thing. It's like some things absolutely need to be interrupted so that we can learn and like evolve. The car being parked in the wrong spot is not the thing that I want to spend my energy on. You know?
I love that. It's how do we make sure we're putting our energy into the conflicts, or whatever's at the core of the conflict? Maybe. It's like, what's at the bottom there, the root, that then we can just move fast, because we're getting to that. It's almost like what you're sharing there about seeing someone else through their longing and belonging, and recognizing that that when that fight from someone else is coming from a place that it's not worth your time, because it's coming from somewhere that they're not even touching at that point. There's something more there. It's,
I want to share a song.
Please. I would love that.
It's from the Fourth Gate of Grief, from Francis Weller's book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow. The Fourth Gate of Grief is, is it the Fourth Gate of Grief? No, it's the fifth gate. It's the fifth gate of grief, so it's ancestral.
Okay.
Okay. So it says, the lyrics say, "There are songs singing in my bones. I can barely hear the notes. They are older than I know. They sound like the ones I've not brought home yet, the ones I've not yet named, the ones I have pushed away. How can I be whole until all of you I have claimed? Why deny this lineage? It's why I am alive." So it's just kind of like going off what we're talking about a little bit. And this is on this album that I'm recording. It's called Songs for Grief. There are songs singing in my bones. I can barely hear the notes. They are older than I know. There are songs singing in my bones. I can barely hear the notes. They are older than I know. They sound like the ones I've not brought home yet, the ones I've not yet named, the ones I've pushed away. They sound like the ones I've not brought home yet, the ones I've not yet named, the ones I've pushed away. How can I be whole until all of you I have claimed? Why deny this lineage? It's why I am alive. How can I be whole until all of you our songs, singing in my bones. I can barely hear the notes. They are older than I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm. That helps me see myself. Like, have compassion for myself. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Ah. Yeah. I feel it. There's been a lot that's already kind of been woven in this, and for this last little prompt, it's you've already shared a fair amount of kind of on this topic about living in your authenticity, alignment, integrity as you open up and be in community more, and even touching back on your growth and healing journey to just recognizing where you need to create boundaries in community and things like that. I'm almost curious now of like where are the edges you're stepping into as you almost explore this openness of belonging with others, and what that has looked like. And some of it might be at least when I think of a lot of my journey, it was I sadly only found belonging with others through conformity, through like shedding certain parts of me, hiding them, and then and now as I step into more just you've got to accept me and see that, I'm finding that other people have gone on similar journeys and it's resonating there. And so if maybe that's part of it, or maybe if it's just whatever might be coming alive in you as you kind of explore this edge of belonging with others and feeling that as it's it's alive and needed, and whatever's kind of alive in you here from
I think what's coming to me is the recovering people pleaser that I was acculturated to be, and especially as like a trauma response from my CPTSD, from my childhood story of like fawning.
Yes.
So like, being submissive and like you said, kind of like hiding parts of myself to conformity to like fit in, and I just got so tired of that. And I felt like I was living inside of a glass box, and like I think it was when that suitcase of my dad's was busted open, it was like, that's not the life I choose. If I want to be, like if I want to be queer, or if I want to be trans, or if I want to be, whatever it is that my true authentic self wants to be, like I'm gonna fucking be that.
Yes. I'm
not gonna repress my soul's deepest longing and then die from that. I will not die that way. Like, no. So, I feel committed to doing my best in every moment to living in my authentic truth as an act of resistance. It's an ancestral thing. Again, it's like, no, I refuse. It's Oriah Mountain Dreamer's The Invitation, the poem. She says, there was this one line, and it's become like a mantra for me in my life. It's like, it's probably, I'm paraphrasing it, but it's something like, will you risk the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul? And
Yes.
that's like, I am first and foremost, in my activism especially,
Yep.
committed to my soul's longing, in that authenticity.
Yeah.
And I have, since I have started acting from that space, I have been creating the community that I've been longing for.
Yes.
Because no one is asking me to be someone that I'm not. If someone doesn't like who I'm being, they just naturally fade away from my life. And then I think the other piece to that is the edge that I'm leaning into is as a leader, as someone who is constantly holding space and, you know, showing up to build out a container, like naturally I'm a human and I make mistakes, and so I get a lot of feedback from people, and I listen to a lot of people's opinions.
Yeah.
Feedback and opinions. And I think my edge is still leaning into the communities that are giving me their opinions.
Yes.
And still showing up to be in relationship with them.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's actually really beautiful.
Yeah.
Because they're also my teachers.
Yep.
So that is an edge for sure. And leaning into it has just really opened up really beautiful pathways, because I think ultimately the medicine in that whole realization is just the difference in my body that I feel when I lean in versus disconnecting.
Yes.
And separating myself from the collective that doesn't serve me or anyone else. So
Yeah.
it's a choice.
Wow. Yeah. I believe like the actualization of our healing only happens in our bodies and in relationship. And so it's that shifting of patterns. And for me to heal my people pleasing, I've had to become like kind of an ass on occasion.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I'm just testing my nose for the sake of it.
Totally.
And I'll come back to loving more and rippling that out. Because before, when I was ripping out love, it wasn't coming from rooted place in me. It wasn't coming from, it was service that was draining my cup, that was half the time perpetuating cycles and systems of harm that I'm not even aware of.
Totally.
And also, it's not true to me, because I'm in a place where I'm building my self-worth on someone else's story of me, not just living me. And that's when I'm just living me, it all comes from a place of the truth. And it's fucking uncomfortable saying, yes, I trust that it's all medicine. I trust that your tension is wisdom and guidance, not just for me, but for the collective, because you're probably on a margin experiencing something in your body that's not being noticed. And so it's like, that's like the best. It's like, as a collective, that's where all of it is. So, yes.
I just want to add
Please.
that last piece there is Francis Weller, the guy who wrote
Agrees.
Wild
Yeah,
Edge of Sorrow. He's a teacher of mine, and one of the things that, he shares that it comes from a Buddhist teaching of I don't know where it came from, but he like translated it into the grief work, but it was like the Buddhist saying from some Buddhist teacher is that the next Buddha won't be an individual, it'll be the collective. And what Francis says is like the next healer won't be an individual, it'll be a collective. And I have had that experience.
Wow.
And I think that that's the main piece of wisdom that I take with me when I move into any circle, is that like I'm here like with the intention, but the wisdom is here in all of us. Like I'm just here to like hold the space for it to emerge. Yeah.
That touches on so many things for me. It's like, fuck the guru complex.
Oh, totally.
It's like, it's also the, our collective body experiences so much of complexity and all the nuance and the relationship that ripples out way beyond humans and all to all kin. And it can end up incorporating so much more to like us learning from each other's experience instead of just trying to isolate and do it ourselves and healing from individualism where we got it all. To also, not one person can hold the vision. It's we're all bringing a piece of the puzzle that we can't even imagine. So if anything, our goal is just to create soil that then helps everyone blossom into,
Totally.
so then they can bring their little piece that they've got.
And it's way too much pressure to put on one person to expect them to have all the answers
Absolutely.
and know everything and do everything
Yes.
and be perfect. And that's just ridiculous. I don't know who came up with that idea.
Yes. Well, yeah, it's all, yeah. It like pains my heart to say it, but sometimes I have to, I choose to believe it's all happened as it's meant to happen. And so even the stories that go back in both of our lineages of the oppressor and the oppressed, as the one separating and the one being separated, and then the individualism and the separateness and the isolation that's all come from that just leads to this ego. And even earlier today I was journaling, like I had to get lost in like my delusions of narcissism and grandeur, because it was my coping mechanism for not having community. It was like I had to believe that something was there. And so all of this of these hundreds, thousands of years that have taken us away from relationship in the land, they will be integrated in ways that allow us to both remember and then reimagine the future, and it can be something more. And that's what I choose to believe in, and that's where I see hope. And so it's not, someone gave me the term of neo-indigeneity, and it was illegal. Got it from
Yes, I've heard this story.
Yeah, and I okay, well, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I didn't get it from Delico directly.
Right, yeah.
I got it from Zach.
Yes.
But yes, it was a good one. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to share that's alive before we say goodbye for now?
I just want to honor just going off this neo-indigeneity, just honor the indigenous people as we did at the beginning of this land, this Coast Salish, Duwamish land that we're on, who are still here and are living examples that can help us, people of European descent, try to retap and remember into our own indigenous roots.
Yes.
And neo-indigeneity is not a term that I feel comfortable using, and I understand it at the same time. So I just want to, I'd love to have a deeper conversation with whoever the person is that brought that term in.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, just my deepest prayer is for all people, and especially people of European descent, who have been so disconnected from our roots to earth and our bodies and to culture and community, that we remember that we are on the path to remembering these ancestral pathways that do become a form of neo
Never.
being together, and neo-animism or neo-connection to earth and the land that we're on as stewards. And also a prayer just to remember to keep connecting with our indigenous siblings of this land.
Fuck yeah. I want to create space for that conversation now. It feels juicy and alive, and it feels like that's like it right there. I'm imagining a moment where you're hearing something like that and you're feeling a tension in your body, and then through exploring that, there's deep wisdom. And so, but we can save it for next time. Thank you, Ahlay.
Thank you.
Yes. Can we hug?
Yeah.
Yeah.